William Morrow and HarperAudio present Mr. Cavendish, I Presume, by Julia Quinn, performed by Rosalyn Landor. Chapter 1. It was a crime that Amelia Willoughby was not married. At least that was what her mother said. Amelia, or more correctly, Lady Amelia, was the second daughter of the Earl of Crowland, so no one could fault her bloodlines. Her appearance was more than passable, if one's taste ran toward wholesome English roses, which, fortunately for Amelia, most of the Tons did. Her hair was a respectable shade of medium blonde, her eyes a greyish sort of greenish colour, and her skin clear and even, so long as she remembered to stay out of the sun. Freckles were not Lady Amelia's friend. She was also, as her mother liked to catalogue, of adequate intelligence, able to play the pianoforte and paint watercolours, and here was where her mother punctuated the speech with an enthusiastic flourish, in possession of all of her teeth. Even better, the aforementioned teeth were perfectly straight, which could not be said of Jacinda Lennox, who had made the match of 1818, neatly landing the Marquis of Beresford, but not, as frequently reported by Jacinda Lennox's mother, before turning down 2 viscounts and an earl. But all of those attributes paled next to what was certainly the most pertinent and overreaching aspect of Amelia Willoughby's life, and that was her long-standing engagement to the Duke of Wyndham. Had Amelia not been betrothed in the cradle to Thomas Cavendish, who was at the time the heir apparent to the dukedom and barely out of leading strings himself, she certainly would not have reached the unappealing age of 21 as an unmarried maiden. She had spent one season back in Lincolnshire, because no one thought she'd need to bother with London. Then she'd spent the next in the capital, because her elder sisters, also betrothed in the cradle fiancée, had the misfortune of contracting a fever at the age of 12, leaving his family heirless and Elizabeth Willoughby unattached. And as for the next season, Elizabeth was almost, practically, we're sure it is forthcoming at any moment, engaged by then, and Amelia was, as ever, still engaged to the Duke. But they went to London anyway, because by then it would have been embarrassing to remain in the country. Amelia rather liked town. She enjoyed conversation, and she very much enjoyed dancing. And if one spoke with her mother for more than 5 minutes, one would have learned that had Amelia been free to marry, there would have been 6 offers at least. Which meant that Jacinda Lennox would still have been Jacinda Lennox, and not the Marchioness of Beresford, and, more importantly, Lady Crowland and all of her daughters would still outrank the annoying little chit. But then, as Amelia's father was often heard to say, life wasn't always fair. In fact, it rarely was. Just look at him, for the love of heaven. 5 daughters. 5! And now the earldom, which had descended neatly from father to son since there were princes in the Tower, would revert to the crown, with nary a long-lost cousin in sight to lay claim upon it. And, he frequently reminded his wife, it was thanks to his early manoeuvrings that one of his 5 daughters was already settled, and they need only fret about the other 4. So would she please stop yammering on about the poor Duke of Wyndham and his slow progress to the altar? Lord Crowland treasured peace and quiet above all else, which was something he really ought to have considered before taking the former Anthea Grantham as his bride. It wasn't that anyone thought that the Duke would renege on his promise to Amelia and her family. On the contrary, it was well known that the Duke of Wyndham was a man of his word, and if he said he would marry Amelia Willoughby, then as God was anyone's witness, he would. It was just that he intended to...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?